In the world of aviation, there is an old saying, "If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going." For nearly a century, those words weren't just a slogan, they were a gold standard. Boeing was the company that built the Queen of the Skies, the firm that helped put a man on the moon, and the backbone of the American industrial empire. But between 2019 and 2024, that empire didn't just stumble, it experienced a $60 billion freefall. The numbers are staggering. 2 catastrophic crashes, 346 lives lost.
Airliner carrying at least 110 people crashes to the ground shortly after taking off from Havana. Video from Cuba's state TV shows the mangled, burning wreckage of the Boeing 737 after it fell into a field.
A global grounding of their flagship aircraft, and a reputation that took 100 years to build, incinerated in less than 5. This isn't just a story of mechanical failure. Much like the collapse of Nokia or the identity crisis at Jaguar, this is a story of a burning platform. It is the story of how a company famous for its engineers decided to let the accountants take the controls. This is the story of how Boeing sold its soul and exactly what it cost them.
Indonesian Sriwijaya airplane is feared to have crashed into the sea after the Boeing 737 lost contact with air traffic control in the capital, Jakarta.
To understand the crash, you have to understand the height from which they fell. In 1916, William Boeing started seaplanes in a timber boathouse in Seattle. From the beginning, the culture was clear: engineering was God. In the 1960s, Boeing risked the entire company to build the 747. It was a project so massive it was dubbed the Incredibles. The engineers were given total autonomy. They didn't just build a plane, they reshaped global travel. By the 1990s, Boeing wasn't just a company, it was a symbol of American reliability. Much like Nokia in the early 2000s, which accounted for 4% of Finland's GDP, Boeing was a titan that seemed untouchable. In Seattle, the bosses were engineers. If a designer said a bolt wasn't right, the assembly line stopped. Quality wasn't a metric, it was a religion. But in 1997, the religion changed. Boeing merged with its struggling rival, McDonnell Douglas.
This is a happy day for the people at Boeing. We are very pleased that we have this positive statement from the Commission because it sets in motion the final steps of governmental approval necessary for us to consummate the merger between Boeing and McDonnell Douglas.
On paper, Boeing was the survivor, but as the saying goes in corporate history, McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's own money. The new leadership didn't come from the Seattle factories, they came from the world of finance. The focus shifted from how do we build the best plane to how do we maximize the stock price. In 2001, Boeing did something that signaled the end of an era. They moved their headquarters from Seattle, the heart of their engineering talent, to Chicago. They didn't move the factories, they only moved the executives. Imagine if Nokia's leadership had moved to a different country the moment the iPhone was released. By physically separating the suits from the shop floor, Boeing created a culture of disconnection. The executives wanted lean manufacturing and high margins. The engineers wanted safety and precision. Like the leadership at Gillette, who believed they could challenge their customer base's values, Boeing's new leadership believed they could challenge the laws of physics with the logic of a spreadsheet. In 2011, Boeing faced its iPhone moment. Their chief rival, Airbus, announced the A320neo, a plane that was significantly more fuel efficient. Boeing was caught off guard. They had 2 choices. They could spend billions and 10 years developing a brand new clean sheet airplane, or they could do the Jaguar move, a dramatic, risky pivot. They decided to take their 50-year-old workhorse, the 737, and slap massive, modern engines onto it. They called it the 737 MAX. But the new engines were so large they changed how the plane handled. To fix it, they didn't redesign the wings. They wrote a piece of software called MCAS.
New, heavier engines make it much more fuel efficient, but in flight, their weight and position force the plane's nose up a bit. If the angle of flight becomes too high, then a plane can stall and crash. So Boeing designed a computer system on the MAX called MCAS, which automatically pushes the nose down.
Then they did something unthinkable for the old Boeing. They didn't tell the pilots the software existed. They didn't want to trigger expensive flight simulator training. They wanted the plane to be cheap to adopt. They were standing on a burning platform, and like Stephen Elop at Nokia, they decided to jump. But they didn't jump into a new future. They jumped into a shortcut. In October 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 plunged into the Java Sea. In March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed shortly after takeoff. The world watched in horror as 346 people died because of a software glitch Boeing had downplayed.
The pilots were not to blame for the Ethiopian Airlines disaster, which claimed the lives of 100 people last month. An initial report says they followed all procedures recommended by the plane's manufacturer, Boeing.
The 737 MAX was grounded globally. The financial toll was $1 billion lesson that makes the Gillette write-down look small. $20 billion in direct costs for the grounding, $2.5 billion in legal settlements and fines, over $30 billion in lost market capitalization as the stock plummeted. Total it up, and you're looking at a $60 billion crash. But the damage wasn't just financial. Like Jaguar, who lost 97.5% of their European sales in a single month after a confusing rebrand, Boeing lost the one thing an airline manufacturer cannot survive without: trust. By 2024, the firebreak strategy, stopping everything to fix the brand, wasn't a choice for Boeing. It was a mandate from the FAA. After a door plug blew out of a brand new 737 MAX 9 in mid-air, the government stepped in.
Some terrifying new video shows the Alaska Airlines plane in mid-flight after the door plug blew off. Just this morning, the FAA also said it was going to increase oversight over Boeing and begin an immediate audit of its production and manufacturing.
Production was capped. Quality audits found dozens of failures. Boeing had fallen into the Gillette trap. They were so focused on the majority, the shareholders, they alienated their core customer, the flying public and the airlines. They told the world they were the best, while their products suggested they were struggling to maintain basic standards. Much like Jaguar, whose exuberant modernism rebrand that lacked an actual car, Boeing's leadership was selling a vision of a highly profitable company, while the actual product was literally falling apart in the sky. So what can we learn from the $60 billion crash of an American icon? The sources give us 3 clear takeaways. 1. Culture is an asset, not a cost center. Nokia survived because they eventually leveraged their forgotten network business, an asset they'd owned all along. Boeing's greatest asset was its engineering-first culture. When they treated that culture like a cost to be cut, they destroyed the foundation of the company. You cannot lean manufacture your way out of the laws of physics. 2. Short-term gains create long-term cliffs. Jaguar burned the bridge to their old customers before they knew if there was land on the other side. Boeing burned their bridge to safety to keep their stock price high for a decade. They spent over $40 billion in stock buybacks to please Wall Street, money that could have built 3 brand new, safe airplane designs. Now they're facing the cliff. 3. You cannot lecture your way to credibility. Gillette tried to tell men how to be better, but the market told them to focus on the razor. Boeing spent years telling the FAA and the public that their planes were safe, even as internal emails showed employees mocking the designs. Attention, or in Boeing's case, PR, is not a substitute for a product that works. So as of today, Boeing is at a crossroads. They have a new CEO, a massive backlog of orders, and a desperate need to find their soul. Nokia proved that losing a war doesn't have to be the end if you are willing to become something else. But for Boeing, they don't need to become something else. They need to become what they used to be. They need to move the suits back to the shop floor. They need to stop looking at spreadsheets and start looking at wings. Because if they don't, the next crash won't just be a financial statistic, it will be the end of an empire. For Billion Lifeline, I'm Cindy. If you found this deep dive into corporate strategy valuable, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one.